chill has descended upon the studio. Darkness is at hand, and our co-host, Veda Himetha, is missing in action because she went to stay at an Airbnb called the House of 1,000 Corpses. And no one knows what's happened to her. It's the scariest time of the year at FindLaw.
Welcome to FindLaw's Don't Judge Me, the show about the law in real life. I'm Laura Temmie, and I'm joined by Joe Fawbush.
Happy Halloween!
Thank you, Joe. Halloween's come early. It's my favorite time of year. And we also have, I think that's Andy Leonetti over there, right?
Laura has hired me to follow her around and talk like this at all times.
Honestly,
that would be
Andy,
creepy.
If I had the money, I would. I would do that. I would fly you up here. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about you two, but I watch scary movies all year round, but I started the seasonal ones like in the last week of August. So I've been gearing up for this for a long time.
I hate Halloween, but I'm very excited for this.
I love Halloween. All the little kids come to your door. They're all excited about it. Come on, what's not to like? I don't like scary movies, though. I will say that. I'm a wimp when it comes to scary movies.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm a huge wimp, except Vincent Price I think I could handle, but...
Yeah. So, some of that old school stuff is not very scary. I think you'd be okay.
So, yeah, like I said, I'm a wimp. Do either of you go to haunted houses or anything like that? Do that around Halloween?
Yeah, I've been to a couple. Yeah, actually, where I went to college in Duluth, Minnesota, not Duluth, Georgia. There's a haunted ship, which is a decommissioned Navy vessel that gets turned into a giant haunted house. It's very fun, and it actually was fairly scary from what I remember.
Yar, who knows what horrors await in this ship.
Yeah, the only thing better than a pirate is a spooky pirate.
Yeah, I don't think I've been to a haunted house since I was a teenager, but I remember them being kind of underwhelming. Like, I don't remember ever being particularly scared, but apparently they get some people, because I've actually been reading about some lawsuits that people have been filing because haunted houses were too scary.
That would be me. I'm the plaintiff in all of these. Spoiler alert.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I will say there are some that are very scary, though. Like, there's one here in Minneapolis called Haunted Basement that is notoriously, like, you have to sign a waiver.
Yeah,
it's very scary.
No. I haven't been to one since college, and that was because a girl I liked wanted to go. So I sucked it up and went, and I hated every second of it.
I feel like that's why probably 72% of people go to a haunted house. It's just to impress someone that they have a crush on.
I'm not scared.
No, it's fine.
Just pee in my pants in the dark, and it's in the dark, so no one can see.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
So, Joe, what exactly is the basis for people's lawsuits? Are they getting injured or?
Yeah, I was actually just going to mention, because there was one case that's kind of stands out above the rest. And this was not, a little kid, a teenager, or somebody trying to impress a would-be girlfriend or anything. This was a 44-year-old man. He was out with his buddies. This was in California.
Oh, he's trying to impress his buddies.
Yeah, so we went to something called the Haunted Trail in San Diego. Apparently, it's a pretty good one. And they have something at the end that they call the Carrie scare. Like I said, I don't watch horror movies, but apparently in the original Carrie,
do they dump blood on you?
Well, no, this didn't involve the dumping blood, but spoiler alert: at the end of
it's
Carrie,
a very old movie, Joe.
This movie was released in the 70s, folks.
Yeah. But apparently there's like a one final scare, everything is resolved and it seems like it's going to be okay. And then the movie jumps out and scares you. And so this was the same idea. Okay, everybody was going to leave and you think you're done. And then there's one final guy who jumps out with a chainsaw. It's a fake chainsaw. But I mean, a very realistic looking chainsaw that smells like it's a gasoline chainsaw. And so this guy thought it was real, got very, very scared. He was like, I smelled the gasoline. I told him to stop, and he chased after me. And so he ran away, and he fell, and he fractured both of his wrists. And he was in a cast for 4 months.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that's...
Hey, are you all right, man? It's just a joke.
Right. So yeah, he did file a lawsuit, and it didn't go anywhere. And there are 2 reasons why it didn't go anywhere. One is in California, there's something called primary assumption of the risk, and it works just like assumption of the risk. That means that when you go to participate in an activity, you're kind of assuming certain things that are inherent to that activity. You know, if you're going to sign up for horseback riding lessons and you fall off the horse, you know, that's kind of something you have to be aware of if you're going to go horseback riding. And it's the same thing with haunted houses. If you're going to sign up to be scared, you kind of got to do it.
You might fall over.
Yeah. And then the other thing is a lot of haunted houses do make you sign a liability waiver. And I think it's actually good publicity, among other things. Like, we're so scary that you have to sign a waiver to get in here. I think it's good marketing.
No one gets in or out without signing a waiver.
Right. Yeah. So those are the 2 big obstacles to suing a haunted house. They do happen, though, quite regularly, and it's not like a blanket waiver. I mean, if you walk into the boat that it has the haunted house in it and there's a hole in the boat, you know, like that's something they can be sued for. But just kind of your average jump scares and creepy crawlies and things, the actors at haunted houses tend to not be able to get into your personal space.
Right.
So if they do that, they could land in trouble. If they have obvious dangers that they don't warn you about, that kind of thing, you can still sue the haunted house for that. But no, if you're just looking to have a good time and it was a little more than you bargained for, I would not want to be the plaintiff who tried to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress after leaving a haunted house.
Right, I think. When you put it like that, it's a little ridiculous.
You'll end up on the list of craziest lawsuits ever that we do next year.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about you next time.
Sorry, sir. All transactions are final.
I really hope you keep this up the whole episode.
And I'm just imagining, like, some guy doing a Vincent Price voice, like talking about the lame contract language of like paying to go into a haunted house and whatever.
Explaining your legal rights before you sign them away. Honestly, that would be hilarious. I would love that. Just like a guy with like half his face falling off, just explaining all the. But again, I'm just kind of a creepy weirdo.
Can you re-spoil Carrie for me? Because I've seen it before and I'm not going to watch it again. But what is the super deluxe scary ending?
It's the hand that comes out
from after the house collapses.
Yeah, the house collapses and then the hand comes out.
That's right. Okay.
I watched it and it was not that scary, but I watched it. I watched it really in the middle of the day at work. So
yes, of course. Yes.
What is your scariest movie of all time? For me, I can't even watch The Shining. I try watching The Shining.
I love The Shining.
Oh, it's just brutal. Oh man,
I love that movie.
Oh, it's incredibly well done. It's just nightmarish.
The movie that really kind of put me off to modern scaretastic whatever was The Ring.
That one scared me too. And like back when it came out when I was
college,
younger.
I went to the movie theater with some friends and I was like, I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to. And I went and I wasn't feeling well either. I was like hopped up on NyQuil.
Oh, jeez.
And I went home and I went back to my dorm and my roommate was gone that night. So I was in my dorm room alone and not sleeping well because I was because of NyQuil. And I would keep imagining the TV turning on, with that static thing.
Yeah.
So eventually I had to turn on my TV, like plug in some Christmas lights, and then eventually at like 4 a.m. or something, I was able to finally like fall asleep. But then like the next night, scared beepless again. It lasted for a while, for like a couple weeks.
Oh wow, that is
like,
last.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Of like being there in bed, looking over at that turned off TV and just seeing it come on. After that, anytime friends were like, "Hey, you want to go see this horror movie?" No, no.
I'm into horror movies now, but the Ring was actually the one that put me off them for a long time, until even just a couple years ago. The Ring and the original version of It with Tim Curry, that also scared the living crap out of me. Recently, the scariest thing I've seen is probably the Netflix series Haunting of Hill House.
I'm not gonna watch that.
It's very, very good. Like, the story is amazing and the acting is very good, but it gets in your head a little bit.
Yeah, I'm literally just gonna watch horror movies from the 70s over and over again, because that's about
That's most of what I watch.
That's about
anyway.
it for me. Like, I'm just gonna keep watching The Exorcist, The Omen,
Yep.
Rosemary,
The
Rosemary's
Exorcist is so
Baby.
good.
I'm just gonna watch those movies over
Yeah.
and over again, and that can be the extent of my horror. Psychological horror is cool, though. I can do psychological.
Not into the blood and guts.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't pay me to watch that Saw franchise.
No.
Oh,
There's
no,
not
no,
enough
no.
money in the world for
Nope.
That level of body horror is not really my thing. But actually, speaking of body horror, something I wanted to talk about today was cannibalism, because what a nice cheery topic for this lovely day that we're here recording, here with my favorite people, talking about eating human flesh.
My favorite horror movie, then, Cannibal the Musical.
That's
I've never heard of it.
one.
Yeah.
That was a
Oh,
Trey
nice.
Parker
Yeah.
and Matt Stone.
Okay.
I think essentially
Oh, wow, okay.
it was pre-South Park.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a spooky season episode without some talk of like vampires and zombies. And it might surprise you to learn that in 49 states, it's technically not illegal to consume human flesh.
Really?
Unfortunately, if you're in Idaho, there is an actual law against cannibalism in Idaho, which made me wonder what was going on in Idaho that they had to codify this.
The Rocky Mountains. That's where cannibalism
But, yeah,
happened.
under Chapter 50 of the state's criminal code, which, by the way, it's a chapter entitled Mayhem, by the way, which also made me laugh. So it's
Nice.
mayhem
General
crimes,
mayhem.
I guess. The willful ingestion of human flesh or blood is punishable by up to 14 years in prison. But, before you go out and try to find some of the other white meat for dinner, like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, that was gross. Although it's not technically illegal, there are some other legal ramifications of cannibalism and blood drinking and such. For example, murder is still murder. Even if someone volunteers, just ask, what was his name? Armin Meiwes, the German guy who videotaped himself killing and eating a man in like 2002.
Yeah, the dude, his victim, agreed to it, right?
Yeah, volunteered. They had corresponded online. This guy volunteered to do it. And even on the video, it's very clear that this guy is consenting
Oh
to
my
being
God.
dismembered and eaten.
And now you just gave me nightmares for 3 weeks. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. the German cannibal. But yeah, he was still convicted, I believe, of manslaughter.
If you feel yourself feeling the urge to consent to having yourself eaten by another human, there is help out there.
Yes, there is.
What a helpful PSA.
Oh, I've got some helpful PSAs today when it comes to eating people. What's that movie where they go, "It's people"?
Yeah, Soylent.
Soylent Green.
There we go, Soylent Green. Well, and for the first year law students out there, there's always the review of Regina versus Dudley and Stevens. Andy, once again, I said Regina with an R. It's a British case from 1884. So this is kind of the basis for, in the U.S. when it comes to cannibalism. It's a criminal law case where 4 guys are stuck at sea in a lifeboat. I think 2 gang up on the third and kill him. And one guy didn't want them to do it, but he helped eat the guy anyway.
He's like, well,
Like, if you're making a pot of coffee, sure, I guess. But yeah, all right.
Right. Like, oh, okay, yeah. You want to get a plate of fries for the table. I don't want to like diminish it too much. They did kill this guy. But yeah, the court held that this was still murder, even though these people claimed that they only did it because they were at risk of starving. So, yeah, just in general, don't kill anybody. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that.
in that movie Alive, about that soccer team that crashed in the Andes, they didn't kill anyone, right? They only ate people who died.
I think so. Well, and then the other aspect to keep in mind with this is that there are also laws against desecrating corpses. So usually we talk about that in the context of like funeral home and cemetery liability, but the rules here still apply. The desecration of a corpse can include grave robbing, misplacing remains, disfigurement, and some states do include consuming human remains.
Oh, darn. And I just got my new smoker.
I hate to break it to everyone. I know I sort of teased you at the beginning there, but because of all of these other statutes, most states have indirectly made it impossible to legally obtain and consume human body parts. So, just maybe find something else to do this Halloween.
What if you found someone like who had died in a hiking accident?
Are you asking me about like the roadkill rules?
Yeah, essentially.
Well,
because what I was saying is that even, like the other thing is that like grocery stores would not be legally allowed to package and sell human flesh.
Right.
Because there's all sorts of regulations about meat. But like what?
Yeah.
But you would probably have some sort of legal duty to report a dead body.
Yeah, I think you do in most jurisdictions, and I imagine these desecration of a corpse statutes would kick in at that point. Even if you find a body somewhere, you can't do anything to it legally. Didn't think I'd be talking about that today.
Now, let's say, just to be clear as well, that you have a friend over to your house and madness takes its toll and you scare your friend to death.
Oh.
Can you eat him?
I was looking forward to your Halloween party until now. That's disappointing, Andy.
Can you eat him?
I will consult with my legal counsel, who I find on FindLaw.com.
Exactly. If you have further questions about cannibalism, consult with an attorney.
Yeah.
Or a psychologist.
We can say unequivocally, don't eat people. Please don't eat people.
Please don't eat people. Look, you come to me for the hard-hitting legal takes.
What Vincent raises a good point, though, that say you scare a friend to death in your home, and you then want to sell your house because you can't sleep at night in that house anymore.
I think I see where you're going with this.
And you consult with a real estate agent. And of course, I'm talking about real haunted houses, not fake ones where dudes dress up like Jason and use chainsaw noises. I'm talking about you're out house hunting and something grotesque has happened in that home. I was surprised to find out that in a large swath of this country, nobody's got to tell you a darn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are places, am I correct that I believe there are places where if you specifically ask about it, they can't lie to you? Like,
correct.
If you say, hey, was somebody murdered in this house? They can't say, oh, no, definitely not. No.
The only states in the entire country with required disclosure laws are Alaska. You must disclose a murder or a suicide within the past year. South Dakota, is the same, murder or suicide within the past year. New Jersey, you must disclose if it's intertwined with the physical condition of the home. Like someone died in the house due to toxic mold.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And then California must disclose any death within the last 3 years. And the seller must also disclose any known death in the home if the buyer asks. And that's also the case for Delaware, Georgia, and Kentucky, which requires you to respond honestly. Some other states have Like Maine requires an agent to get written permission from the seller to disclose the information if the buyer inquires. Some states recommend that you voluntarily disclose, like Kansas and Ohio, even though there's no specific laws, sellers are recommended to disclose anyway. In Vermont, disclosure is required if it affects the future use or value of the home. Which
okay.
Funnily enough, as I was doing some research for this episode, a lot of websites did feel the need to point out that a murder in the house will likely negatively affect the home's value.
No kidding.
Unless we're talking like Jeffrey Dahmer's house or something like that, and someone with a lot of money wants to buy that house.
Some of those. I think it was a few years ago. I think John Wayne Gacy's house was up for sale, and just
Illinois represent.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to buy that, but
the funniest to me, because the way a lot of states word it is that states have laws about disclosure with like you have to disclose if the roof leaks, blah blah blah. But then laws are written in a way that they say like something like a violent act or a death or anything like that is not a material fact, quote, material fact to the sale of the home. And so sellers are not required to disclose it. My favorite carve out is Massachusetts, which their law excludes the disclosure of psychologically disturbing facts like murder, but also, quote, this says it in their statutory language, you do not have to disclose parapsychological or supernatural phenomenon.
Oh, you don't have to tell them about the ghosts.
So
see, the ghosts are what I want to know about.
If the ghost of Vincent Price is in your closet in Massachusetts, just saying like, is that new bed a Casper?
Oh my God.
Heyo.
Did you remember to buy your estate plan at FindLaw.com? Then the seller doesn't have to tell you that. That's pretty wild to me. You have to tell like windows that don't close, faulty foundations, safety problems with appliances, mold, environmental hazards, but you don't have to say if somebody got murdered in the house.
Would you want to know?
Yeah, I would, because I would not buy that house.
That would stop you from buying the house?
Yeah, it would stop me if the murder was unsolved.
Well, sure, yeah.
If the murder had been solved and the murderer was caught and in jail, I would probably be okay with it.
Yeah.
But if the killer was on the loose,
you don't want him coming back to the scene of the crime.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Now I'm just trying to think of situations where you would need to talk about the ghost stuff. Maybe if it starts to turn into like a Ghostbusters situation where there's like ectoplasm around, that becomes a physical. Like if there's spectral goo dripping from the ceiling, they should probably tell you about that because that's like a physical.
Ectoplasm is an environmental hazard.
It's gonna rot the wood, really.
It's so funny to me because here in St. Louis we have this place called the Lemp Mansion. The Lemp family were like the beer barons of St. Louis before Anheuser-Busch even. And there's this big mansion and now it's a restaurant and they do tours and a bed and breakfast and whatever. But many members of the Lemp family died in that house. One of them, who was like the heir to the brewing company, died in mysterious circumstances, and then a whole lot of suicides over the decades, like 4 or 5 members of this family.
Wow, that is a lot.
I would want to know that.
Yeah,
if I'm gonna buy a mansion,
right?
That there's a lot of spirits hanging.
Right.
Making sure I don't discover the secret formula for a 1870s lager. And also, I have a little bonus legal tip in here as well. And this is just a shout out because I love St. Louis so much. There's a really odd tradition here where kids who are going trick-or-treating are expected to come with a joke, like a lame joke, to tell in exchange for candy.
Okay, so it's not just trick or treat. You got to perform a little bit.
Here's why couldn't the skeleton cross the road?
I don't know why.
He had no guts.
No.
I was going to say he didn't have a body to go with.
I love Joe's reaction. Yep.
Well, I was just going to say, are you going to try to out dad joke me on this? Because that's going to be hard.
The gauntlet's been thrown.
What do witches put on their hair?
What?
Scare spray.
Oh my
What's a
gosh.
vampire's favorite? This is a very St. Louis joke. What's a vampire's favorite drink?
What?
Budweiser?
Bloodweiser.
Oh, okay.
Bloodweiser. Yes, he got it. He figured it out. Yeah, Bloodweiser.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Or Bloodlight, if it pleases
Sure.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to tell the kids of St. Louis out there who are listening to this show, if an adult doesn't give you candy because you didn't think of a joke, you are legally permitted to egg their house.
We do not
Or TP
condone
their house.
criminal activity on this show.
It's not criminal if they refuse to give you candy. Cute kids in your costumes of St. Louis, come to my door, open your bag. You don't even have to say anything. I'll give you some. We'll hand out candy. No joke. Don't worry about the jokes. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's interesting.
I think it was a tradition that began as a Depression-era attempt to curb hooliganism,
Sure.
which included upending trash cans, turning on fire hydrants, and shooting out streetlights.
Yeah.
The theory seemed to be, I'm reading from a NPR article here. The theory seemed to be that kids would perform fewer pranks if they had come up with a harmless sort of trick to receive treats.
Okay.
Work on your jokes, kids, because I guess I don't want to hear that anyone gives my name when they get arrested for vandalism.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want that to be how we get pulled from the airwaves.
I will say that no one of the name Andy Leonetti even exists.
Oh, see, now that would be a fun horror movie plot twist that me and Joe have been talking to Nolan for 2 years.
So creepy.
And that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of FindLaw's Don't Judge Me. Please subscribe to, rate, and review our show wherever you listen to podcasts. Check the show notes for related content. And if you'd like to contact us, send us an email at findlawpodcasts@thomsonreuters.com. Speaking of things that are too scary, has anybody ever been to a haunted house that was too scary? That was terrible. That was so bad.
There's nothing scarier than dead air when recording a podcast.
Sorry, that was
All
really
right,
bad.
I think I can.
You got it? Okay, thank God.